2 raging book nerds, 14 years of friendship, and 1 burning question.
If Katniss Everdeen posted on Reddit, would she be the arsehole?
Welcome to Once Upon a Red Flag. This season, we're stepping into Panem, where every tribute, tyrant, and mentor gets their day in the Am I the Asshole courtroom.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Rachel.
And join us while we read between the red flags and break down the Hunger Games, one questionable decision at a time. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 8 of Once Upon a Red Flag. We are so happy that you are here with us, and it's going to be a beefy episode. This is Haymitch and Plutarch catching fire. There's a whole lot to speak about. It's also very early in the morning. Are you awake?
Yeah, if you have any sort of like lapse in silences, it's because my brain has fallen asleep. I have not had a full cup of coffee yet today. And to make matters worse, my fella is still asleep. He's in the other room,
so sad.
flat out. So you know how much harder it is to wake up when there's other people in your house who are still asleep, just taunting you from the other room by doing nothing. It's kind of like that this morning. So forgive me if I am a little bit slower on the uptake than usual. But
it's okay. I'll fix it in post.
Thank God. So sorry, editing Katie. There's going to be quite a few lapses and silences here.
Okay.
But I know you had a brief mention of the Sunrise on the Reaping trailer and the last episode.
Yeah.
And you are itching to talk about it again. So away you go, Katie.
But just with being Haymitch's episode and Plutarch's episode and all this, obviously they're very much Sunrise on the Reaping is like their world, their story. And I keep watching the trailer over and over again because some bit that really gets me, obviously, you haven't seen it yet. So
I haven't seen it yet. I've purposely not, for everyone come through in the comments, I've purposely not watched the trailer yet because we're still, in my mind, I'm still doing Catching Fire, Mockingjay, and I will get there later on. I don't want anything, even in a trailer, even though I have technically read the prequels once each, I don't want to be reminded of them and it to pull me out of that to go back in here. But you just couldn't wait. You could not wait.
It opens with Drusilla, obviously the escort they call them for District 12, coming on screen, and she's in such a tight outfit she can't move or like walk properly. So they're like pushing her on like a trolley kind of thing, which is so creepy. And when she stands, she's got this really god awful like bob, like halfway down bob, and some kind of weird things on her face, and she obviously does the traditional "Welcome to the glorious reaping of District 12," and if you just see everybody's faces in the crowd are just completely deadpanned, and she's so, but it's Effie but really creepy. I don't know how she makes it even more creepy.
Effie in the Nightmare World.
Yeah, actually, it does feel a little bit like that. And then obviously you've got Haymitch being reaped when he wasn't actually reaped, which is really like dire, and you see the way I think the vibe they're going for, everybody keeps saying is kind of 70s, which does make sense with the order and stuff, and the way that they've kind of done the arena and the costume design for it is very, I don't know if you've seen Midsummer, the horror film.
Haven't. I'm not a big horror person. I like reading horror. I don't find reading horror anywhere near as scary as watching horror. So I will have nightmares if I actually watch horror films, so I refuse. Well,
anybody who has seen Midsummer, they will instantly be able to tell when they start watching this trailer that it definitely gives those kind of vibes. Okay. It gives like harvest, lots of colours, lots of like pretty things. Obviously we know that with the arena anyway, for the cornucopia scene, and they have to finish out the trailer with Haymitch's house on fire, and it's so sad. Yeah, don't watch this trailer unless you're kind of in a good headspace.
So I have a quick question for you, because I also, for the same reason, have not seen Ballad as a film.
Have you not?
At all. I have not.
Oh my God, I've seen it like 3 times.
I have purposely avoided it because I didn't want my, I guess, mental vision of the books with the podcast like being coloured by those choices as well. Obviously, I couldn't avoid that with Hunger Games because I had already read the books and already seen the films, but I can avoid it with the prequels. Do the vibes feel different? Does it feel more... Because obviously when I'm reading the books, the original Hunger Games is YA and it's still like horrific in terms of like death and murder and mutilation and all that kind of stuff. But whenever I'm reading the prequels, like not even just the words and the themes, but also like the typeset of the books as well is different. Like you are getting like more words per page. Like I opened Hunger Games and it feels YA based off the layout. And I open Sunrise on the Reaping and it feels like adult fiction, even though
but yes,
that how the films feel as well.
That makes sense, like book-wise, right? Because all the original fans who read it
are now older.
When it was YA, we were all teenagers, and now we're in our like 20s, 30s, 40s, like whatever, or however old you were when you read it. Honestly, any age makes complete sense. So like, I think the books are going to have that kind of change, especially now half the people that read them when they were teens are now voting. Fulham has kind of done that on purpose. Film-wise, they do feel a little bit older, but not that much older. I think they are still done to have teenage YA viewers and that kind of thing. I feel like with Sunrise on the Reaping, it might be slightly different though, because you have these references to Midsummer, and
that's why I was thinking, like, is it going to be like? I mean, I think I ended up reading, even though I have the physical book, I think I ended up reading Ballad on my Kobo instead, which obviously I didn't get the same typeface. But the Ballad book that I've got comes in with the box set with the 3 YA books. So, I mean, that would make like sense in terms of if you're putting those 3 together and then Sunrise, so there's 4 together, and then Sunrise is like its own kind of older entity, I guess, because Snow does feel quite juvenile, I want to say, in Ballad. He seems like he has a very, very naive outlook on the world, a very, very selfish outlook.
Yeah, definitely
like
selfish.
The whole world revolves around him, which I guess is at the time indicative of his age. Whereas Haymitch wouldn't have that privilege of having any sort of level of naivety at 17. So that, I guess, kind of makes you feel older there as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I'll be interested to get your opinion when we do kind of get round to Sunrise on the Reaping and you've watched the trailer. Obviously the film won't be out by the time those episodes come out.
No, it won't.
The Sunrise on the Reaping episodes will probably come out like next year. You can listen to them like leading up to the film coming out, which honestly might be a very good refresher for me.
We say next year to us, because we're recording in November. By the time this episode comes out, it will be what, January, February?
Yeah, January, February 2026. So I guess I should say later this year.
Later this year, yeah. That feels we've been really, really prepped and really, really ahead with this because Kate has got such a tight schedule.
Busy.
So for us to manage any of this, we've had to do it really, really precise and planned out and well thought through. So if timelines ever seem weird, it's because we're about 3 months in the past to you guys.
Yeah, my fault. I guess, okay, so like moving on, right? We have an icebreaker for this episode, like we always do. And our question for today is, which book character would you trust to get you out of a life or death situation? What do you think, Rachel?
I went through a few different names, a few different characters, and then I realised that in my little romantasy reading brain, I was thinking of all male characters, and really, in comparison,
happens. Yeah.
I was going, Rhysand, like, yeah, he would. He's genuinely like just a good guy. But then I forgot about our girl Selena Sardothian. If you've read Throne of Glass, you realise how badass she actually is. Just to survive as an assassin, I feel like I'm going to put my faith into her. To be honest, I feel like that's where I'm going with this.
I'm going to get absolutely butchered because I'm going to have to admit and out myself that I haven't read all of Throne of Glass. My best mate Aisha will kill me. Yeah, I started it and then life happened, work happened. I ended up moving on to something else, but I am going to go back, especially if we do a season on it. I'm going to have to read it all.
I really want to, but there's so many books in that series that it's going to be a beast of a season.
Okay.
That it might have to be split. Like it is. But then I guess, which book did you read first? is the question. You've started it. Which book did you pick up?
Is there not just one book that everyone starts with?
This is the thing. So I read it in publication order because is it Assassin's Blade, it's called, which is a series of 5 short stories which act as prequels to the Throne of Glass book.
I haven't read those.
They were published, I think it was after book 2 or book 3. But then there's a lot of debate around which order you read them in. So I did Assassin's Blade like 3rd, I think, in the end. And where you read them changes the first time view of the books.
I think I just started with Throne of Glass.
That's what I did, and I had a grand old time doing it. So
I need to finish that though.
I kind of I want to keep talking about Throne of Glass, but at the same time I can't because you know nothing.
Yeah. So moving on, which book character would I trust to get myself out of a life or death situation? I have to say Xaden Ryerson.
He'd put you in it though.
Yeah, he'd put me in the life or death situation, but in good chivalry manner, he would also get me out of it. So it's fine.
He might. Okay, no, I won't say that. I realised that I have read Onyx Storm and you have not.
I haven't finished it because
I'm going to shut up now.
Crazy. Yeah. I'm about halfway through. When I have a second to sit down and read it, which probably won't be till March 2026, I will finish the book. It's just way of life at the minute.
Yeah, I should clarify. I stopped reading it midway through because when I have a physical book, I have this horrible, horrible need to skip to the end the second that anyone has anything negative happen to them. Where I go, no, please don't tell me that you have to get them out of this, right? And I skipped to the end and I look at things and then I got halfway through and then I went, nope, not till the next book's out. Nope, I'm not putting myself through that because I just don't have faith in authors to give me happy endings sometimes. So I have to look. I have to double check the love interests get together that everyone actually lives. Which I can't do on a Kobo, which is why I Google things. And then once I've Googled things, you find other things that you shouldn't have seen. So don't never Google an ending, guys. Don't do it.
Don't spoil it for me. I will get there, I promise. It's just taking time.
I need to finish it as well yet. So, but then again, unless we do a season on it, I might just wait till Rebecca Yarros brings out the next one.
Fair. Well, I mean, early next year, won't it?
I don't know.
Usually
I know it's in the works.
Usually it's around the new year. I think.
I know she was taking some time to write something else because she got so sucked into writing the Empowering series that it was sort of negatively affecting her. So she took some time to write something else. There was a bit of a delay. So it might end up being... So next year for us is obviously January 2026. Next year for you guys is January 2027.
Oh my God. So, at some point I will remember when there's a different calendar.
How far ahead we are.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Moving back to Suzanne Collins and the Hunger Games, which is obviously why all the lovely listeners are here and why we are here. We are going to get into the post of today. So, this post is from username Drunk and Disorderly. I wonder who this is about.
Really?
Okay. Am I the arsehole for sacrificing my friends for the greater good? I, 40s, male, posted on here previously and I was hoping for the same level of advice again. I've watched the kids I mentor die every single year. And finally, 2 of them survived. But in order to get them both to live, everything had to be thrown into chaos. Now we are on the brink of rebellion. For years, me and someone I will refer to as a colleague have wanted to overthrow the regime that controls us. But rebellions aren't sparked by speeches. They're sparked by symbols, sacrifices, and choices that don't always feel humane. Oh, very good. Gotta take a breath.
He's very verbose as hell, so he's drunk.
One of the kids I mentored has become that symbol. And now we have to make the difficult choices. Our government made the decision to overrule a previously agreed upon perk of winning the Hunger Games. You are meant to be immune for all future reapings, and they clearly decided that we were too strong and too much of a threat. They have thrown a bunch of previous winners back into the arena, and this is where our plan was born. But we didn't tell the kids in the plan. We had to make decisions for them. and hoped that they went along with what we expected them to do. They got thrown back into the Hunger Games arena, not knowing anything about our rescue efforts, trying to get them out alive. Thankfully, we were able to clue in some of the other people in there with them to help guide, and we managed to get the girl out alive, along with some of the allies who helped. Others choose to sacrifice themselves to keep them both alive. We lied to these kids. We let them believe they were only fighting to survive, and that may have played into some of the decisions they made in the arena. The boy was captured as a result, and we have not yet found a way to get him back with us. But without the actions that we took, we might never have made the progress we did. The girl is the most important of the two, and we have her safely with us. The boy, sadly, is less important than she is. We had to prioritize rescuing her. The government wanted her dealt with, no longer able to cause issues. If we clued her in and everything went wrong, the government would probably know what we were planning. It was too risky to let them know, but now she's murderously mad we've used her as a pawn in our game. But her death or capture would have meant the end of the rebellion, and all hope for everyone would have been lost. Are my colleague and I assholes for this course of action, even though we had no choice?
It's a lot, isn't it?
Okay, so let's start with the relationships that Haymitch has with the other victors. I feel like that's really important for Captain Fire, for the rebellion, and for all of that. I have to mention how hard it must have been for Haymitch to see Mags die, and for Wiress, literally, she has her throat slit. How hard that must have been for Haymitch to see. I know we're not on Sunrise on the Reaping yet. I know we've talked a bit about it earlier, but considering they were his mentors and they were so badly tortured after his games, to the point they were never the same, to see them go back into the games a second time for the third Quarter Quell and to be used as pawns for the rebellion as well, not only for Snow, but also for the wider rebellion scheme, knowing they probably wouldn't make it out alive. That must have been so hard for him. And I know the rebellion plan is like the idea of the greater good for all of Panem, to get rid of, Snow, the dystopian, Iron Fist. Like they have a reason for it, but that must have been so hard.
I mean, you can sacrifice whatever you want in this name, but you don't have to like it, right?
Yeah.
Something that you've made me think of here is the not to go too far into Sunrise on the Reaping, but basically, even if you just take what you know of Haymitch being a loner and living alone and just drinking by himself, you know that he doesn't have basically anyone really that he's close to, right? And Wiress and Mags basically being his mentors, there must have been some sort of relationship there, a level of trust that now he no longer has with anyone else around him. You could argue that, well, maybe every tribute has that relationship with their mentor if they survive, but Katniss, for example, has her mum, has Prim. Peter has a family, and Peter has Katniss. Katniss has Gale and Hazel and all their family as well. Haymitch was in the position of being a victor who only had his mentors as any sort of support system ever.
They weren't even from his district, were they?
So he couldn't even, you only see them when the games are being shoved back into your faces. And these guys would be someone who understands. I guess part of the thing with the victors is everyone gets it, right? Everyone understands. They've been in an arena, they've been a pawn in the Capitol's games, they've gone through that trauma. And so Haymitch's relationship with Mags and Wiress will have been deeper because of the fact that they get it, they understand.
They do,
and that makes it even harder to sacrifice, even if these people want to be involved, even if people are asking to get involved and to do their bit, that still must be really bloody difficult.
Yeah, and obviously not getting too much into Sunrise and the Reaping, but obviously Wiress and Mags got tortured after because of what Haymitch did. They were never really the same after that, and to kind of see them having to essentially be tortured again by Snow, going in, kind of basically being condemned to death. Obviously, they both die as well. But they do it for his cause. I wonder if Haymitch was the one to try and convince him, or whether it was, somebody else.
Somebody else within the thing. I sort of do go into where Haymitch as a person falls in this sort of grand scheme of like, because the rebellion has leadership, right? And you have a place within a leadership hierarchy. So I do sort of want to examine, like, where do we think Haymitch is and how much power do we think Haymitch has within this organization later on. But going back to like his relationship with the victors and how this all kind of came about, like what kind of relationship does he have with them throughout the year. While prepping for this episode and for a previous episode at the same time, I kind of had a realization.
Okay.
Because yesterday we were talking about, well, yesterday for us, a week ago for you, we were talking about the propaganda TV being the only way to circulate information among districts, apart from rumours. Now, rumours are still getting through to District 12 from the rest of Pan Am. Because Haymitch is the one who brings these up. He hears these whisperings. Now, I think these rumours must be getting through. I feel like District 12, for example, peacekeepers would probably drop a few hints because they're not that on brand for Capital. Do you know what I mean? They're a bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
A bit, yeah. But I also think Haymitch himself has a part to play in this because Katniss gets to like casually ask her prep team, so like she's talking to them about, and they say like, oh, well, we've had fabric and ribbons shortages and stuff like that, and she's like, oh, what other shortages have you had? And she can kind of get like a vague idea off that. But that led me back to them. Well, where's Haymitch getting his rumors from? Like, how is he communicating with the world outside that isn't via the Capitol, right? Isn't via a peacekeeper or the Capital's propaganda TV. Well, he's a victor, right? He has a phone. He previously smashed it up, but he says Effie had it fixed. Now, why would they have it fixed now and not before? What has changed in this time span? This is pre-Quarter Quell as well, by the way. This is pre-Quarter Quell. The victors have working phones. Like, he has Katniss and Peter. Like, if he had any messages to pass along, they could have, like, used his phone if he was talking to, like, Cinna about, like, the actual, like, victory tour. There's no issue to have your phone fixed. If you want to stay hidden from the world, you can stay hidden from the world, Haymitch. That's fine.
I do.
But Plutarch is no head game maker.
When you say that, but don't you think that, like, obviously they constantly think that their houses are tapped and bugged and that people are listening. Do you not think that, you know, their phones would be tapped?
Yeah. So like there is this idea. They do think that the phones are tapped. But I think everyone's kind of aware of this Snow and Katniss tension. So I think it kind of then becomes worthwhile to try and have some corded conversations, something that seems innocent. For example, like the bread delivery seems innocent, but it's a code. District 3, the third day, 24 rolls, 24 hours, midnight. So, like, even that is a code for something.
True, yeah, that's a very good point. But do you think, I know they're victors and I know they have all these privileges and everything, but do you think they're allowed to make calls to other districts? Do you think that's actually something that's possible?
Well, I think it depends on who's where, because so Cinna calls Katniss in the Capitol, and so if you do have people who are vaguely involved in Capitol life who have some sort of inclination to your team, like, I think Cinna could be the linchpin here. Like, I don't think that Haymitch is on the phone to Plutarch or anything like that. That would be far too risky.
Suspicious.
I don't think, I don't think we can even assume that Haymitch knew anything that Plutarch did at this point. There's no direct contact between the two of them. But, for example, him talking to Cinna under some sort of disguise of Katniss wanted me to pass along a message about her clothing line that you're helping with. Like, I think he could easily get away with that. Whether the Capitol is, I guess, encouraging victor relationships, I don't know. Up until this point, I imagine they would have been, because the more victors who are pally-pally, the more interaction you get in between them, the more that you've got to market to the Capitol, the more they would seem like just, like, I guess, honorary capital citizens.
Yeah. But do you...
Like they have a real life, but that's the big question in mind.
But do you think, or if there was like victor and victor communication, do you not think it would have to like go through a switchboard in the capital?
Oh, it would 100% be coded. I think they would know who's talking to who. They'd know whose phone numbers are calling you. It's still a very, very risky game. But so is Rebellion. So
that's very true.
I just think it's very, very quickly planned otherwise. Like, because unless you're getting every single person on board in the span of the week in which they have been reaped, that's a lot of high-level communication in person in the capital, which is probably the worst possible place to be having this level of communication.
Yeah, that turnaround's too tight.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then the victors at this point as well, the victors are then no longer being seen as like companions or friends. They are now seen as, or the capital would be wanting the victors to see the other Quarter Quell contestants as like the enemy. So it'd be even harder in that sense to organize any of this stuff,
I guess.
So I think part of that is Haymitch has been on board with it from the start with the phone line.
Yeah, I guess
fixed.
Before we get into like the nitty gritty of the rebellion scheme, I think it is important to get into Haymitch's relationship with himself and like obviously with Katniss and Peter at the start. I do want to say that at the start of Catching Fire, we do get an even deeper idea of how bad Haymitch's drinking is, as Katniss remarks how, once Haymitch ran out of white liquor as he couldn't get any, and his withdrawal was so bad that he nearly frightened Prim to death. So now Katniss, who the hell's Katniss? Katniss stocks up on the stuff ahead of time to ensure that it never happens again. Katniss also remarks how Haymitch's house is kind of falling apart, even though the groundskeepers try to keep it repaired. And Katniss refers to Haymitch's lifestyle as a victor not being isolation, but rather being solitary confinement. And I think that is good to keep in mind as we go forward in this episode.
Yeah, and like Haymitch as well, like sleeps with a knife clutched in his hand. So we mentioned last week how Katniss is still aware of like wild dogs come out any moment and attack her. Well, 25 years on, and Haymitch is still having nightmares enough that he wakes up, and the first thing he does when Katniss wakes him up throwing water over him is to start swinging this knife around so that no one can get anywhere near him.
It's
and like
so sad.
It's 25 years after
so
this happened, all his sort of trauma occurred. And he's still damaged by all of that. He's not had any ability to process it. But once again, he's a mentor. And so every time you think you might be able to process something, up it rears again. Every single time.
Yeah, there's no denying from kind of the start of the book that even though they're not like super close, Haymitch has developed a relationship with Katniss and Peter. For them to kind of be taking care of him, like Peter bakes him loaves of bread and brings it to him, and Peter stockpiles the white liquor as well as Katniss. Katniss comes to check on him and wakes him up because he's asked her to. So you can see this weird dysfunctional family dynamic kind of starting to happen.
Yeah, they kind of like take over taking care of Haymitch, and I guess it's the first time someone's probably ever looked after him. In that way, since he was in the games. But like this relationship between Katniss, Peter, and Haymitch, it makes this turn of events like so much harder for these guys to grasp. It makes it so much harder on Katniss and the pawns in this game, really, because of what's gone on between the games. So like, let's go through this like chronologically in terms of like what these pawns are actually aware of. So Cinna making Katniss the Mockingjay in the interview, like Katniss was there to witness this part of the rebellion. It's the best damn piece of rebellion inciting I've ever seen, because it was done so stylishly. But it's just after the victors have really, really hammed up like how the capital is going too far with this Quarter Quell. How Snow is all powerful and he could have stopped it if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. But Katniss is aware of this being a massive risk. That he pays the ultimate price for it. He does die. I think it's safe to assume that like he's one of the people that Haymitch is communicating with.
100%.
Is like, I guess, contacting the capital. He's got an excuse to contact him. But obviously this is one part of this, I guess, rebellion plan that Katniss is aware of, but she's just seeing this one piece as just being Cinna voicing his opinions. But like, talking of Cinna, small side note, these skills that these victors like have to take up, right? So that they are doing something with their time that isn't inciting rebellion, that is productive in some way to society. Clearly Haymitch has managed to find a skill in just keeping his liver functioning, and no one has ever bothered to try and make him do anything else.
Yeah, I probably gave up a while ago.
That he's not a worry, right? The whole idea is that they need to do something that isn't... They have a position of power now, and they cannot just be idle with that. Do you think the capital's profiting from the skills that everyone collects? Obviously, Katniss has a clothing line that she's designing with Cinna, or Cinna's designing it under Katniss's name. Peter's...
I wish someone would do that for me.
Just make a lot of money for me. That's fabulous. Like, do you think the capital is profiting? And like, for Katniss, for example, say she developed her skill, they could sell, oh, look at this coat that was designed by Katniss, auction it off to the highest bidder. Same with Peter's paintings. Do you think that's part of why they allow it?
I hadn't even thought about this. I obviously just thought it was them trying to keep like idle hands busy kind of thing when they haven't got things to do and they don't want them to be doing anything rebellious. But the fact that it could be kind of adding to the franchise of the Hunger Games almost, like it's merchandise. Like Katniss is designing clothes you could get a lot of money for. I don't believe Katniss would really see much of that money.
No, well, she already has her winnings. She already has nothing to like. Doesn't want anything. So Peter's paintings to the highest bidder. I hadn't even thought about it from the fact of they could be making it into like a franchise merchandise situation and trying to see what else they could get out of these people. So really, like, it's you don't have to work anymore and you have all this money and don't have to do anything, but also we need you to do a skill because you need to contribute to like the franchise of the Hunger Games, so you're now kind of a talking piece for the Hunger Game. That's how I'm kind of seeing it, because I don't give the capital any grace at all. I don't give Snow and the Game Makers any grace. I think they are building what is effectively a torture machine and also a money machine.
Yeah.
And they are profiting off every single piece of that. And the victors having a skill is something that they could monetize very, very easily.
Interesting. That's a very interesting point. But getting back on track, okay, to the Quarter Quell, Katniss and Peter are aware of how difficult these games are going to be for them. And for Haymitch, like even Katniss brings it up. If they don't want allies because it would be hard to kill these people that they either like or want to protect, like Mags and Wiress and the Morphlings, they know how much they know how hard it must be for every other victor who has known them for longer. Like they haven't known these guys very long, but they remark that they kind of grow a little bit of fondness towards them. When Katniss and Peter say they don't want any allies in the arena, Haymitch does remark, "Good, then I won't have to feel bad for your stupidity killing any of my friends." And then we know later that he must have known many of his friends were going to die in the name of getting the Mockingjay out of the arena safely. Not just from the arena and the games themselves and the career tributes, but also from potential capture after the fact, like we have with obviously Joanna, Annie, and unfortunately Peter. Whether they were fully in on the plan or not, depending on the need-to-know basis, how much they knew, like he would have known that most of them were going to die through one means or another.
Yeah, I guess like when you join a rebellion, that is kind of the risk that you take, regardless of the method in which your death arrives. You've got to know that the second that you sign up, that is what the capital is looking for.
Yeah.
Is to torture you and kill you. And knowing that, I guess, friends are with you on that path and they agree with you is some small comfort, but also knowing that you're all risking your lives is not great. But like Haymitch does try and warn Katniss like not to kill her allies without actually saying those words. Like he stops her and basically says like, when you're in the arena, remember who the enemy is.
Yeah.
But then like he starts scowling in the middle of it because he knows like she's probably likely to disappoint him with that. But also like, you haven't let her in on the plan. Like, you know, Haymitch, that she will fight this underhanded setup of getting her allies that you have made. Do we think you could have let her in on that plan? Maybe not the rebellion plan, but like Finnick and Joanna being like on her side, having him go, look, no, actually, I have overruled you. You need allies. I've got you, Finnick and Joanna.
I think he knows that wouldn't have gone down very well at all, though, and kind of should have just been like, actually, like, F you, you made me even more annoyed now, and I'm going to make like a purpose choice to not talk to anybody.
It wouldn't have gone down well with her, but the number of times she contemplates killing them, like, and one false move from anyone in that arena, really, it's kind of like her relationship with Peter all over again.
I was literally about to say, like, it's Peter all over again.
Peter all over again, yeah. Where she's like, do I trust you? Do I not trust you? I don't know. This is suspicious. What is your game? I don't know what your game is here. I'm going to have to kill you at some point. Why am I allying with you?
But obviously...
And towards the end, like, she almost has killed them as well. Like,
obviously, like they hide the rebellion plan from her. They hide the ally plan from her. There's so much that both Haymitch and Plutarch hide from Katniss. And we know that Haymitch concocts the idea of Peter telling the Capitol that there is a baby on the interview night in hopes of stopping the games. And I think that is so clever. And like, to this point, the Capitol citizens, or at least 99% of them, have not felt bad at sending teenagers to their death. But as soon as it's a fetus, which isn't even born yet, there's outrage, like complete outrage by the Capitol and the audience. And that says so much about how these people value life. And I don't want to get too political. Everybody has their opinions, but it's so clever on Suzanne Collins' behalf. Reaped children equals fine, but a fetus inside a reaped tribute, especially one from the girl on fire who is a celebrity, a baby of the Capitol citizens, and they should have had the right of seeing grow up as a product of the games, has been ripped from them. Like, the values are like really messed up, if you see my point. Like, but yet again, Katniss is taken by surprise on the stage of the pre-game interviews, but this time for a baby she doesn't even have. Like, this time, though, she doesn't get angry at Peter for blindsiding her. Like, she even tells him that she's grateful that she didn't know in advance. Like, the baby strategy is one she carries into the game, sometimes cradling her stomach in the hopes that some sympathetic pregnant woman in the Capitol wants to become her sponsor, or using as an excuse of her getting like overly emotional so her sponsors like don't lose faith in her mental state.
Okay, I have so many thoughts on what you've just said, but I'm going to start with a quick side note with how impressed I am that they managed to still get gifts into the arena. So it's like Katniss is trying to play up the pregnancy angle at this point, just to try and get something from sponsors. I would have expected Snow to ban all outside gifts, knowing that Victor's previously, like Finnick, was sent weapons. Like, he was sent a trident. Like, I would have thought, okay, for this games, have another spin. You don't get outside gifts. You've just got what you've got in the arena.
Yeah.
And then you have to make the most of it. Because even Katniss sort of speculates, like, maybe they want us to die early. There's no source of food. There's like,
it's the first time
nothing.
They've already done that.
Yeah, but like, I guess maybe they're probably just trying to pocket the money from the sponsorships as well. But then again, they could just like not send the gifts. Maybe that's sort of Plutarch's way of overruling him. But I didn't take the baby plot the way you've taken the baby plot.
Okay, interesting.
So I didn't see Haymitch as having any hand in this at all.
Okay.
Because Haymitch and Effie basically let Peter and Katniss out of their interview coaching because they're like, you've literally just done the Victor's tour. Like, we think you'll be fine. Have the day to yourselves, guys. I think Haymitch is basically off plotting at this point instead of coaching. But because of that, I read it as Peter acting on his own with the baby plan.
Okay.
I read that Peter just going, you know what, screw them all. Let's just
going off script.
As his own little act of rebellion. Because obviously, like, pregnant women being killed in the games would be the worst thing they've ever done, right? Yeah. But then Peter doing it gladly. Because obviously you've read it as the final, like, piece in the puzzle of the setup with the victors being, like, orchestrated so that the interview ends in chaos. I read it as the Mockingjay should have been the chaos sort of trigger. And then Peter comes in and has his own little act of rebellion, because he does have that streak in him as well. So if you remember at like the Capitol party the prep team's shown him like how everyone keeps on eating and eating by making themselves throw up. And one of them says they've already been in the bathroom like twice, so they can keep enjoying food. Also, how do you enjoy food after you've just thrown up? What the hell?
It makes you feel a bit sick, I'm not gonna lie.
But also, like, at that point, he says, sometimes I think they're all right, and I can, like, forget about everything just to, like, have a conversation with them. And then they go and say something or do something like that, and he thinks that maybe the rebels are rising and the cast to change. And then Katniss shuts him up because in the middle of a freaking Capitol party in Snow's mansion. Like,
such a change of pace to be having that conversation.
It's not the time and place to saying anything remotely rebellious. But he does have that little rebel streak in him as well. So I was reading it as Peter sort of having his own little moment because I couldn't see anywhere where Haymitch would have mentioned that to Peter to get Peter on board, because I would have thought that if it came from Haymitch and not from Peter, then knowing Katniss's reaction to the first interview star-crossed lovers moment, I would have thought that Peter would have been like, really? Do you think she'll be on board with that? Whereas if it comes from Peter, I goes, sod it all. It kind of made more logical sense to me. So it's interesting that you've taken that as Haymitch being underhanded and part of the rebellion as opposed to how I've taken it.
But like, thinking about that though, it does make you wonder how much of the plan do you think Peter actually knew about? Like, we know that Haymitch never intended to actually save Peter. Maybe he did, but he wasn't the priority. The plan was always to save Katniss. So maybe Haymitch actually been telling Peter the truth. Like Peter, for instance, like his token for the Quarter Quell arena he takes into the games is a locket which has the image of Katniss's mum, Prim, and Gale, and it's one of the gold tokens, which I'm pretty sure came from Effie. Yeah, and all people he says Katniss, needs to make it home for. Like, Haymitch didn't do an item like this for Katniss, only for Peter. Like, he didn't give Katniss something to convince Peter. It was the other way around. So it does just make me wonder, do we think Peter knew more than Katniss did?
See, I saw that as Peter off his own back as well, because I think we're going back to the whole, like, the first games where Peter's determined to save Katniss. I think it's the same again, so obviously don't forget, he's already come up to Haymitch and been like, we need to get Katniss out. I have no one if I don't have Katniss. So I'd rather die because she has everyone. She can have a life. I know I will not be happy if Katniss dies. So I sort of read this as Peter having a conversation with Effie and Haymitch going like, look, you know where I stand. This is my last ditch attempt because I know Katniss won't agree with me. This is my last ditch to get her on board, to convince her that this is the right move to, if I die, let me go kind of thing. I didn't take it the way of Haymitch never intending to save Peter. I saw it as Katniss's priority, because there's no rebellion without Katniss. But he does go a long way to keeping Peter alive because he's important to Katniss. Whether Peter is, I guess, actually important to the rebellion, he's important to Katniss, and keeping Katniss in the rebellion, keeping her happy, is a big part of that. It's like, rescue effort-wise with the hovercraft, Katniss's priority, Peter's lower down the list of that. Don't forget, like, he's run away from the lightning tree. Obviously, you can't foresee Enobaria and Brutus attacking right at the moment they have this rescue plan. But he isn't where he's meant to be by the rebellion's plan. He's ran off. Everyone should be crowded around that tree or in the center, because Katniss and Joanna are meant to go down and then head back up and meet them somewhere else. So they're all meant to be together in one to be rescued. And if they were all in that same location, I think it would have happened. They would have been so much easier to pick up everyone. Whereas Katniss's priority, you've got to land where Katniss is, who's around Katniss, Beetee and Finnick. Joanna's off hunting after Enobaria, trying to lead them away from Katniss, trying to make sure that Katniss is the one who gets rescued. Like, Joanna sacrifices herself. Peter's just running around trying to find Katniss. It wasn't like he was purposely, like, moved away from the group.
Yeah.
But Haymitch, I think, would save Peter. I think Plutarch's harder to convince it's worth the risk.
Yeah, I do find it funny, obviously, when when you're reading Catching Fire, Katniss remarks at one point when in the games that Haymitch like must have convinced them, like the audience and the people, that Peter is the one who's most likely to be able to lead like a revolution. And this is after Finnick gives Peter CPR and mouth-to-mouth, even though she originally thinks they're just kissing. She doesn't know what that is. And, you know, why Mags sacrifices herself and walks into the poisonous fog so Finnick can keep carrying Peter and keep him alive. And why one of the Morphlings comes out of her hiding space to save Peter from the monkey mutts. And why Joanna saves Nuts and Bolts for her. Like, she twists all these things to mean that they are doing it to keep Peter alive because he has such kindness and can move people with his words, something she kind of keeps saying over and over again that she's not able to do. And Katniss even says that even Finnick has realised something that the rest of us also have, that Peter is better than all of them, as he won the games by chance, not by killing. Like, no one good actually ever wins the games except Peter. And in the book, either she gets really good at lying to herself and she really believes what Haymitch has said to her and what she's saying about Peter being the one who's able to lead a revolution, when he has a different plan the entire time.
My read on this is like pretty much the same comments that Haymitch is gonna make in book 3. It's all about keeping Katniss on side. Like, he knows Katniss isn't going to want to play ball with people who would sacrifice Peter's life when she is so willing to be the one who died to keep him alive. Katniss isn't looking to lead a rebellion.
Yeah, like, she never has been.
At no point does this girl ever be like, yeah, you know what, let me be the face of this campaign. She might be like, yeah, shit needs to happen, but she recognises that she's a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And she's just been given, or she's just been assigned this power by other people. So, like, he does kind of know that it's a both or neither situation. You need to keep Katniss wanting to play ball with you.
Yeah.
And if you sacrifice Peter, that's going to be the most surefire way of her not doing that. Like, the rebellion leaders themselves may very well believe that Katniss is the only one that they need, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but Haymitch is the only person on, like, the committee that we see who has been in the arena.
Yeah.
Right? Most people are capital, whether it's Plutarch, who's been outside the arena, or when you get into the cameraman and Coin and stuff, the only person who's ever been in the arena is Haymitch.
Yeah.
He's the only one who understands the bond that is formed when you have been in the arena with someone. Like, keeping Peter alive means keeping Katniss alive. Keeping Peter safe means keeping Katniss safe. Like, they're kind of a package deal at this point.
Yeah.
But I think he also knows that Katniss will 100% be on board with people sacrificing themselves for Peter, because she's going to sacrifice herself for Peter because like, he's the best of them. Like, she's immediately like firing arrows to kill in the cornucopia. She's not aiming to injure and leave. She doesn't kill anyone directly at the cornucopia after the first fight ensues. They manage to get away, but she shoots to kill, and he's the only one who hasn't. So she's willing to kill herself. She's willing to sacrifice herself to keep Peter alive because he's the good one. He's the one who has the power with his words. He's the one who thought of the gesture for Thresh and Rue with a month of their winnings every year to give them something extra. I kind of think Haymitch is playing Katniss in a different way, because Katniss will not be on board people sacrificing themselves for her, but keeping them together, keeping them both safe, because if she's having to save Peter from these attacks, she's more likely to get injured herself because she's having to think of two people. Whereas if there are expendable people, I guess, like the Morphlings, like Mags, like Whereas and Joanna jumps in, even though like she takes a knife to the leg to save Peter's life, so Katniss can worry about herself, because Katniss is capable of worrying about herself. I think it's Haymitch's way of taking on board what Katniss wants and then just keeping her alive. You're sort of a bit pensive with that, a bit like, okay, maybe I can see it.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective.
Okay.
I'd be interested to like see what all the listeners think about that as well.
I'm gonna sort of give you more Haymitch maybe not being quite as bad as some people think he is in this, because Haymitch also remembers the allies that Katniss wanted. So originally at the very start of the training sort of section of the games, when he's saying like, oh, make some allies, Katniss comes out and she wants Wes and Beetee and Mags.
Of all people.
Of all people, she wants the guys who are, I guess, the nicest, but visually probably the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah.
They're not trained killers in the same way. There's some sort of hindrance that they might be because of that. I suppose Beetee is conveniently the mastermind behind this whole plan. He's the brains behind the operation. He's how they break out in the first place, by having that wiring in there. It's convenient that they're like the most important people to the core plan. And this kind of like leads me to Finnick's comment about how Katniss has remarkably good judgment when Peter says to Finnick that she wanted Mags all along. On the first day, she wanted Mags. Finnick and Joanna are kind of like the hired muscle. They're like the youngest, the fittest, are helping to keep everyone else alive. He is the one who brings down the arena. Iris is the one who figures out the clock mechanism to keep them alive for longer. Mags is there to sacrifice herself, but she's also the best one for making fishhooks.
True.
That's one of the things that one of their only sources, apart from like the rodent that they find in the woods, is the fish. And so she would have been fantastic at getting them food. Would this plan have even fallen into place without Katniss's initial picks for allies? Because she liked these people, right?
Yeah.
There's no question. She at no point does she ever say that she doesn't trust Mags or Beetee or Wes to be decent allies. It's always Finnick and Joanna who she worries about. She's not worrying that Beetee's going to turn on them and electrocute them instead. She's worried that Finnick or Joanna would stab them in the back to win. If she didn't do anything, and if she hadn't picked these people in the first place, Mags or Wes or Beetee, nothing in the world would have gotten her to take on allies like Finnick and Joanna. They kind of become like her bargaining chips, but they're just conveniently important at the same time.
Yeah, like Wyrus and Finnick's kind of a package deal, right? So I'm sorry, oh my god,
Mags and Finnick
is a package deal. So she wanted Mags, so you kind of by proxy have to get Finnick. I think Joanna would have been a lot harder, but it was just the fact that Joanna obviously kind of teamed up with Wyrus and
and she brought them, and she literally says like, I brought them for you.
Yeah, she's like, what?
Like that was kind of like her, like Katniss's payment to like get in the ally group. I bought them for you. You wanted them. I've done this for you. And as I sort of like circle around this point, like here, what if Katniss had no allies? What if Katniss had adamantly said, I don't want anyone, you won't get me Wyrus, you won't get me Mags, sod the lot of you? How much harder would that have been? Like, you would have still have had the rebellion plan going on to try and get her out, but it would have been so much harder to get her out if she's not in on the plan that Beetee concocts. Like, how difficult would it have been for Beetee to try and figure out where Katniss is in the arena to make sure that he does not electrocute Katniss with his plan?
This is why I keep coming back to Peter, right? Because she even keeps saying like throughout, oh, when do we leave these guys? Like, do you trust them? When do we go off just on our own? Like, they're going to turn at any minute. Like, you can tell she's very suspicious. But Peter is the one who's like, oh no, we'll stay till this, or we'll stay till after this, or we'll stay till the tree's down and then we'll go. Like, he's always the one that's like, oh, we'll just stay a little bit longer. So that's why I keep going. It's like, how much does he actually know? Even though I'm like, Peter, he's so innocent. I feel like he wouldn't really know much,
like,
but
so he kept out of it.
Is what it keeps kind of stirring that thought up for me.
I get you. I get where that thought's coming from. I kind of see it as Peter realizing that, okay, they're stronger together, but worst case scenario, he's willing to die for Katniss.
Yeah.
He can protect Katniss in that moment, give his life up for her, and then she can handle herself. I think it's kind of like a better the devil you know situation to be like, okay, these guys seem to be working with us right now. I don't think they'll stab us in the back. I think we would just part ways and then have it be a fair game. And I know that I could sacrifice myself for her, like my intention is in the first place. And I think that's also kind of why I see Peter's baby plan as being Peter's, because it's one more reason that Katniss can't sacrifice herself for him. Because if there's a baby on board, that then complicates things politically in terms of what she's able to do. Because as a mother, she should want to keep her baby alive, regardless of whether the baby's born. That's kind of why I see it as being like Peter's thing. It kind of just, I get his bargaining chips and him trying to like setting up all the ways he could possibly like die first to push Katniss into being the one who has to survive.
I get that, but like I am so suspicious about whose actual idea that was, because we obviously throughout we get the other victors. Obviously the victors were there for the pre-interviews, they know about it, but they do bring it up a lot. Even when like Katniss gets emotional, Finnick's like, oh, it's because of the baby, and all this sort of stuff. Like I don't know if it's a wider thing or if it's then something that Haymitch and Plutarch were like, right, we're going to adopt that, we're going to use that a lot. I don't know. I'm really intrigued to know what everybody else thinks, because I think there
where this plan came from.
Yeah, there are probably a lot of different perspectives on this. Like, was this Haymitch and Plutarch concocting for the rebellion? Was this Peter going off on his own, or was it just kind of convenient that it all kind of worked out and slotted into place? I really don't know. Maybe it's too early in the morning, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot that the victors are in on, right? Because that's the whole thing, is that they're aware enough to want to sacrifice themselves for the cause. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the whole plan in the first place, is that you have these people who will let themselves die for this plan to go forward. So I guess
it's like, well, I'm going to die anyway in the arena. I might as well make it for a reason.
And I assume then that even if the victors weren't in on the baby plan, do they know that the baby's fake? Because even Katniss herself forgets that she's supposed to be pregnant. Yeah. She's like, oh, maybe I should rub my belly, I'm supposed to be pregnant. Because like in Finnick's one is like, it's because of the baby. It's because of the baby. You're emotional because of the baby. Not that you just saw Peter die. I think I'll come back to another episode of the plan so far, but Finnick sees a lot more than he lets on. So if you go to when Finnick and Katniss meet for the first time outside the start of the like opening ceremonies for the games, he says that he trades in secrets, right? And Katniss is saying that she doesn't have any secrets. People seem to know what her secrets are before she knows them. And he goes, yeah, I think that's right. Like, I think he sees that Peter loves Katniss, Katniss loves Peter, but their relationship is still fake. She won't let herself commit.
Well, I don't know.
I think he sees right through that.
I don't know. I have different opinions to that, but I feel like we should save that for when we get to the Victors episode and we speak specifically about Finnick, because I have different opinions and we don't have time for a debate on that right now. So that will have to be another episode.
I do then wonder whether, like, because of that, Finnick reminds the audience about this baby when Katniss herself isn't, whether that's intentional. Because like Katniss and Peter are kind of out of the loop with everything else. Yeah. At the same time, like they're so new at playing this capital game. And a lot of this capital game that they end up playing has been concocted by other people. Whereas the other victors involved know how to play the game, and I think would recognize when others are playing it, because they're also in the same thing. These guys are like seasoned professionals. I don't know. That's kind of how I'm viewing a lot of these interactions that go on and how Haymitch has set these all up.
Okay, so moving to the events of the final chapter. When Katniss is out of the arena, Katniss remarks how, at least in the games, she knew she was being played with. But she says how secretive her new friends have been, using her as a pawn in their rebellion game without her consent. It's harder for her. Like, the entire plan is being kept from her. When she finds out Plutarch and Haymitch, of all people, have left Peter behind, she attacks Haymitch and uses her nails to draw blood from his face. Like, she was so convinced on what she had, like, agreed with Haymitch But I think the ending of Catching Fire comes as such a shock, like to us and to Katniss as well. And at the end, it's when Katniss obviously hears Haymitch's voice, she actually decides to barge through that door. Like when it was Finnick, when it was Plutarch, she didn't. But when she heard Haymitch, she kind of became outraged and was like, right, I'm going through. Like it's Haymitch's voice that's the one that outrages her, like having this conversation with Plutarch and Haymitch. But I guess that's where the betrayal comes from.
I guess like Plutarch though is a product of the capital, right? And so she kind of like expects this level of like deceit and all these like machinations. Like she expects that from him, but I guess not from Haymitch, who is her district, and who knows how important like Peter is to her.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the very, very beginning when they're at the Capitol party in Snow's mansion, and Plutarch approaches her for the first time, he asks for a dance. And she remarks that she ranks game makers somewhere below maggots in terms of the creatures she wants to have contact with her skin.
Ugh,
so, like, not only is Haymitch bigger betrayal, like, she's helped look after this guy, helped, like, make sure that his, like, white liquor withdrawals don't get too bad. He's also not a maggot, like, so it's a bigger betrayal by far, and that sparks the rage in her. But I do think she still has that same level of rage at Plutarch, but I don't think it's a case of she doesn't dare strike him because he's capital. We know full well that she would. I think it's like, I will do something else that does not require putting me in the same, I guess, vicinity as him. They're in the same room, but I don't think she wants to, like, go physically anywhere near his person. I think he's still the threat.
Yeah, I think it's because she had so much trust in Haymitch. I think that's what annoys her so much. And obviously at the end, thankfully we do get an explanation. Suzanne Collins doesn't just leave this on a complete cliffhanger in respect to the plan. Like Haymitch and Plutarch do say that Peter and herself are not let in on the plan because if they were captured, they would know too much. And even Plutarch says, you know, he worried about tipping her off to the plan with the disappearing Mockingjay on the pocket watch. And you can tell that Haymitch does feel bad, right? He does feel bad that this has happened, which I guess does play into your thinking that he always did kind of intend to save Peter. Because when, you know, he says that Peter was taken by the capital, he has she says, the decency to lower his gaze. But when he admits the fact he lies to Katniss says that he says it in a very matter-of-fact manner. So he doesn't really feel bad about the lying, but he does feel bad that Peter was captured.
But he has kind of been lying all along. Okay, so let's kind of like, I'm gonna completely spiral here, but like, let's talk about the very, very first betrayal that happens, right? Because before we even get into the rebellion, like, he's still playing Katniss and Peter like pawns on a chessboard, regardless of whether you're discussing the rebellion or not, because he makes promises to both Peter and Katniss to keep the other alive, which is where a lot of her anger comes from, because she's made the same promise to both of them, and that's obviously not possible in that initial world that Katniss thinks she is going into, where only one can survive. And Katniss is going to go into the games regardless. It boils down to who is going in with her. It's either Haymitch or Peter. There's no other person. So either Haymitch dies and Peter lives, or it's the other way around at this point. That's how she's viewing it. But that's the main decision we're dealing with. But even then, this kind of becomes obsolete, because Peter got there first. He made that promise that he would be going in with Katniss to Haymitch, and then Haymitch's name gets drawn, and they realise that there's no way to spare Peter, because if he wants to go in, he's going in at that point. Haymitch gets drawn, and Peter volunteers. There's nothing they could do. So, like, kind of here, like, Haymitch gets the free pass, but then I don't view it the way Katniss does. Katniss views it as he did not keep his promise of keeping Peter alive. Now, I view it as him actually trying to keep the promise to both of them.
Okay, interesting.
So at least the way I'm reading it, he tries to save them both. Even though he's taken by the capital, Peter, like, every victor ally that Haymitch lines up for Katniss is about protecting Peter and keeping him alive, and then by extension Katniss. So, and then if you do skip forward to Mockingjay, they do even going to rescue Peter from the capital for Katniss. And Haymitch is an instrumental part in getting that done. Like, he is the one who says, like, look, if you want her on side, you kind of got to do this. So, even though we're not at that point in the books yet, here in Catching Fire, I do believe he's already actively aware that, like I say, to keep Katniss on side, Peter is a priority. I just think he tries to keep the promise and then can't keep the promise, but then it just gets delayed and overridden by outside forces. But he does make that attempt, and Katniss in all her rage just can't see that he did make that attempt.
Yeah, but she's blinded. She's blinded by
anger.
Potentially starting to realise that she really did love Peter because of everything that's happened in the arena. She's getting more of those feelings coming in. She thought she could trust Haymitch, thought that promise was kind of solid, and then here's been this whole thing going on behind her back the entire time. I'd be angry too.
Yeah. Like, once you're, like, in that situation of anger, you can't see reason. And I think if you come out of it to see reason, I think he has sort of, like, put his best foot forward in this. It just gets more complicated, though, because the official rescue plan apparently only began the moment the Quell was announced, which kind of leads me to the thought of, okay, well, if Peter's name had been drawn instead of Haymitch, Haymitch probably wouldn't have volunteered on Peter's behalf because he would have been more valuable to the outside because the Quell's already been announced. So the plan has already been put into motion, and Haymitch is one who knows about the plan. So him going inside the arena might not have been the best idea with knowing about the alcohol withdrawals and how much of a vulnerability he would then be to the team. How would he have explained that to Katniss? Because at that point, he would have had to break a promise. Whereas at this point, I don't think he has. But I do think in the name of the rebellion, he would have broken a promise, but still to keep everyone alive. Like, I think that bit just kind of complicates it a bit more when you're looking at Haymitch as a personality and the choices that he would have made. And then, but with the way it pans out, I think Haymitch just makes the most of the bad situation. Because Katniss does say she wants to start an uprising after Gale's whipped. Like, she's drawn into wanting to be a figurehead, even momentarily, because the people around her are being directly threatened. And he laughs it off entirely. Like, he's like, that is never going to happen here. Like, there is no way on this earth that you are going to get 12 to rise up and that's all you have influence over right now.
I mean, he wasn't wrong, right? 12 didn't really rebel.
They didn't. Which also leads the question again of why was this ever a concern that was brought to Katniss? But at that point, like, there's nothing Haymitch can do. It's only when Plutarch's the one in control that Haymitch then has a bit of power. But that's only because he's one of Plutarch's chess pieces. That Plutarch can sort of push around the board and he's sort of like biding their time and waiting till the moment's right. So like we kind of, you get a sense of what Haymitch would have done in however the reaping fell. And really, like, Katniss is mad that he hasn't broken a promise, whereas the other way around he would have done. But then you go back to all that Katniss knows about Haymitch, and I sort of go, well, why is she surprised that he kept secrets from her and didn't tell her about the rebellion plot? Because they did the same thing for Peter.
Yeah.
When Katniss comes to Haymitch and says about Snow's threats, they're like, don't tell Peter. Because the more people who know, the riskier it gets. So Katniss is even in on that decision with Haymitch. And it's about protection. Like, Peter does see it as, like, thinking that he's weak and doesn't deserve to know, or they don't trust him, which is then how Katniss takes it this time.
Yeah, it happens to the both of them. And I guess when they were hiding things from him in the original Hunger Games, and then also hiding things from him in the Victory Tour and leading up with, like, Snow's threats and all that kind of thing, I guess she can't be really that surprised. I think what makes her so annoyed is the fact that it's flipped. It's now happening to her and not happening to Peter.
Yeah, which is a little bit hypocritical of the girl, don't get me wrong. And And I guess, like, we do have an answer about what happened in the first games now, right? He confirms that he chose Katniss, but he says that since Peter was determined to protect Katniss, and obviously Katniss is looking out for Katniss, if Haymitch is also looking out for Katniss, then at least he might be able to get one of them home. There are more people who are looking out for both of them, which I think leads me back to the idea of him actually wanting to get both of them out, because in this scenario, Peter's working to save Katniss, and now Katniss is working to save Peter.
Yeah.
And now Haymitch is working to get both of them.
Yeah.
And he has the victors on side. Like, the chances of him actually getting both of them out now have massively increased.
Okay. I see what you mean. I see what he means. He's promised Katniss that he'll save Peter. He's promised Peter that he'll save Katniss. But to him, he's thinking, well, I've got this rebellion plan they don't know about. And actually, this rebellion plan is going to save both of them. But I can't tell them that. And
exactly.
Obviously, it works in the long run, like however many years down the line, but it obviously doesn't work just at the end of catching fire.
And if, like, Enobaria and Brutus hadn't attacked right as the plan was about to happen, I think he would have got all of them out. But you can't hold that attack that split them up against Haymitch, because that is completely out of his control.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, they say that the rebellion plot began the second the Quarter Quell was announced, and it does make me wonder, and it keeps going around in my head, like, did Plutarch, and by proxy of communication Haymitch, know that one of the Quarter Quell options was this all-stars season, which would mean his plan would work beforehand, or did Plutarch, and after the fact he reached out to Haymitch, figure this plan out? Like, did Plutarch convince the president to use that Quarter Quell twist this time because he knew the effect like it would have, and therefore their plan would work? Like, who was in the know about what, and therefore how did the plan come to fruition? Because I think you have a very important point for this one, and what I believe is proof that they knew that this would be an all-star season far before their announcement of it, is the fact that Plutarch says things like arenas are not built in a day, and arenas were built, they started getting built like a year in advance. Like, the arena is so specific, so brutal for each tribute, and specific to their games. Like, they must have known about this probably from the 74th Hunger Games ending. And I think it's a fine line that Plutarch is kind of teetering on as head game maker, and also being part of the rebellion. Like, he has to put on a good show, otherwise it's painfully obvious. And to be honest, you can, as we've seen, you can get killed off, as we saw with Seneca Crane, just for being bad at making good TV, let alone being part of the rebellion. And then in that vein, I want to talk about how twisted this Quarter Quell arena is.
Oh god, yeah.
After a while of obviously Wiress saying tick-tock, tick-tock, and driving Joanna mad, Katniss figures out that the arena is a clock, like Wiress probably figured out from the first day, because it's seeing of 12 wedges, with each wedge holding a twisted game maker torture, which is activated twice a day. So obviously 12 lightning, 1 to 2 blood rain, 2 to 3 poisonous fog, 3 to 4 monkey mutts, 4 to 5 jabberjays, 6 to 7 is an unknown beast that apparently kills the District 10 male, though we don't know what it is. I think they just hear it. 10 to 11 is obviously the giant wave, and 11 to 12 they think it's insects, which they believe could strip them to the bone in seconds. I think that's just from what they hear before a tribute dies. And on top of this, unlike normal years, as we mentioned, food and drink were not available at the cornucopia. So he's done all this stuff for this arena to put on this really, really good show. But these wedges are so specific to the victors. I feel like they must have known way before that announcement was done that it would be all-stars and it would be victors. Or do you think they just made this arena with the wedges and the clock idea, and that the flavour of what was in the wedges was kind of done afterwards? I guess, how quickly do you think they could have actually put these things together?
I guess you could have had a multitude of scenarios. I think they've got quite a lot of arenas on the go at once. They building multiple ones. Maybe they know the next 5 years worth of arenas, and it's just a case of, well, what extra twists do they put in there? Because I can't imagine that they're building all of these, terrorizing machines each time afresh. You must, you don't, I know they tour arenas after, but you don't obviously need to have all the traps and stuff in place. So you could effectively, pull out the poison fog sort of generator and stick it in another arena. So I guess as long as you've got an array available, you could rework things around. I guess one of the things that's so brutal about this arena, which is why I do sort of question where the level comes in, because it does seem like there's a lot more game maker triggered events in this arena than every other arena going. So, and then at the very, very beginning of the book, like Plutarch hints it starts at midnight. So he knows that this arena is this year, like 6 months in advance minimum. So I guess it's whether it was meant to be less torturous, and it was meant to be some segments were rigged and others weren't. Some segments were more bountiful, and you could find water in 2 to 3 o'clock, and the poison fog would not have existed in that segment. And whether they made it more torturous because it was victors and because they're trying to make a point. Because compared to the previous arena that Katniss was in, how many sort of like game maker triggered events happened in that arena? You had the fireballs.
Yeah.
You had the cornucopia feast that I guess was put on by them.
You had the mutts, obviously. Yeah.
But I think everything else was them battling it out with each other.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess that victors are more likely to want to ally together than like scared kids would. So I guess you're expecting less brutality and more having to sacrifice people off to game maker events. So it's like when in that timeline did that get put into place? Because I kind of assumed Snow was the one who rigged the Quarter Quell to be victors only.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. It's just whether he was convinced to.
And I thought it was after Katniss couldn't quite, the rebellion didn't quiet down on its own. Katniss couldn't do it. I thought it was at that point. I thought it was a bit more like, let's just see how this plays out, and this will be like the card up our sleeve that we can pull out. But I also think Plutarch could have rigged it, because this plan to sort of like, he's been part of an undercover rebellion for a long time. And this could be a way to put all the relevant pieces back into a board that he can now control.
It's true, yeah.
Because you have to have some level of control over the space that you are working in. And if you're in the capital, in the districts, the rebels wouldn't have control over that. The capital would have had control over that. But that then adds a whole new level to whether Plutarch, as Haymitch's colleague, sacrificed the victors. Because it's one thing to take advantage of the shitty situation, but it's another to put them directly in harm's way. And like I say, like Plutarch says that it starts at midnight comment, and he claims that it's to gain her trust as a mentor, because she would have been mentoring the District 12 girl. There's no other person who would have done that. But he also says the flavor, as he calls it, quote unquote, flavor of the games was still being decided at 6 months. So that kind of leads into is this the ace up the sleeve of when we put this in? But like I say, he admits to knowing it's the clock arena, just not that she was going to go back in herself. So who decided? I don't know who decided. If it was Plutarch who picked the games for this year, another possibility appears to me, and that is that Katniss or Suzanne Collins makes a point of Katniss saying that Plutarch was the game maker who tripped backwards into the punch bowl.
Yeah, I always find that really funny when he says that.
He was that startled that someone from 12 who all the game makers wrote off, when she shoots the arrow at the pig, like he's that shocked that someone from District 12, this little thing, or any of them really would have the balls to do that, to basically like threaten the capital in an indirect way. Now, he was part of the undercover group, the rebel group then, and they clearly weren't gaining anything at all until Katniss appears, which kind of leads me to the thought that maybe Haymitch didn't need to be the one. Like, we kind of assumed that Haymitch might have been the one to drop the whole idea of Katniss and Peter both being able to survive in the first games. I guess kind of that's the way the films take it. But that's never mentioned in the book specifically. So I kind of wonder whether Plutarch, who was already a game maker, who already had an in, could have thrown that idea around that Seneca Crane then picked up on.
Yeah.
Because he could have easily then gone, hang on a minute, Katniss, she's in the games. She might win. Let's give her a chance at winning and let's throw Seneca Crane under the bus. Knowing that he would be the next head game maker to replace Seneca Crane, that puts him in power, in prime position for the Quarter Quell. He could bring her back and put her in. So if you think that Plutarch might have been behind it, you could get back even further to the first games.
I think that Plutarch definitely had a say in Katniss becoming kind of the Mockingjay and kind of putting her as potential leader of the rebellion. I guess, well, as soon as he kind of mentioned that he was the one that fell back into the punch bowl, that he was there when she fired the arrow. I obviously know that he was part of the rebellion even from like Sunrise on the Reapings, like 25 years before.
Yeah.
And so it does make me think, oh, he might have gone, oh, this is Haymitch, but luckier. You know what I mean? So thinking, oh, she would be very, very good for this. And then obviously, yeah, I don't know. I guess he could have maybe had a kind of side conversation with Seneca Crane, being like, you know what would make really good TV?
Yeah.
You allow two people from the same district to win, knowing that Seneca Crane would be the one that would get murdered, not him.
Yeah.
Because it probably wouldn't come back. So he's getting off lightly through that. I think he obviously would have been aware that the Quarter Quell was coming up. He probably wasn't aware what was going to happen. But then if he probably started helping design the arena, having that clock, and then, maybe when he realized that things were going really, really south and that President Snow would probably pull out kind of a rager of a special Quarter Quell idea, he was probably like, I don't know whether he knew. I don't know whether he knew that was an option before or if he found that out after. This is what really, really gets me. I can't tell. And I'd be interested to know what everyone else thinks as well. Like, was this like a last minute plan, or was it a plan that he had and then once the Quarter Quell announcement was made, it could kind of be put into action and in fruition?
Because I think even if Plutarch got himself as head game maker because he saw a way to get Seneca Crane out of the way, regardless of whether he managed to put his plan into place for the next year, for the next games, whether the rebellion sort of like picked up steam there in that way. Obviously Katniss had a bigger role to play than you were even aware of when he fell into the punch bowl, but it becomes a method in which to get himself in a higher position of power for him to have more influence, for him to make more traction with the rebellion. So regardless of whether you view it as him knowing what was coming up with the Quell, he could still very well have thrown Seneca Crane under the bus, but it just sort of landed in his lap that he managed to do it the next year.
Okay, so we've gone through this episode, we've discussed a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, we've got to answer a very important question. And we've got to answer, am I the arsehole for sacrificing my friends for the greater good? And obviously in this respect, we are speaking of Haymitch and his colleague, Plutarch. So, the arsehole is going to have to be on a scale again, and Rachel's going to have to be a scale.
I think I want to separate it out and do Plutarch and Haymitch as separate arsehole percentages.
Okay.
Because I have a few sort of mitigating circumstances for our boy Haymitch.
Okay.
So the first comment I want to make in Haymitch's defense, as his court-appointed attorney, is ultimately, like, I think his asshole nature here hinges entirely on the fact that Peter wasn't rescued at the same time as Katniss.
Okay.
Kind of the fact that 12 no longer exists.
Yeah,
that was out of his control. I think Snow would have done that anyway, so I won't assign that to our boy Haymitch. I think Katniss would be a lot more on board with what had gone down and what the plan was, even if she found that in retrospect, if Peter was still safely with her. Like, I do think that Haymitch tried his best, but he is teamed up with Plutarch. Plutarch is capital. like a lot of this underground rebellion, like that we learn later, is Capital or Victor or District 13. These guys are kind of unknowns, right?
It's
I
true.
think the saying is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but we kind of know this to be a massive generalization. And if you look forward to the third book, it is wildly inaccurate.
Yeah.
Turns out the enemy of your enemy can also be your enemy as well.
Oh my God, so confusing.
Haymitch, like, he is a drunkard, right? He is like not always firing on all cylinders because of that, but he is also smart.
Yeah,
and I think he's aware of this. I think ultimately he knows he kind of has limited sway within this group, and he knows that the Alliance is the lesser of two evils, but it is still potentially an evil because you don't quite know what you're getting into. You just know it's got to be somehow better than what there is now. Doesn't mean it's going to be great though, right?
Yeah.
It is still pretty much an unknown force. And I do think he's kind of just doing the best with the situation he has got. And I think if you do take into account the fact that the only reason that, if you disregard District 12, which I'm going to put on Snow, I'm not going to call any of that Haymitch. I think Katniss would blame Haymitch. I don't think anything has to do with Haymitch. If you disregard that and you bring Peter back in and you say, okay, cool, they all got rescued together, the plan itself has no faults really in that aspect. Like, no one would be mad at him for that plan. Every victor who got sacrificed, I say in quotes, because they didn't get sacrificed, they agreed to be a sacrifice. And that's a different thing. So I think from where Haymitch is at, Haymitch is on the same playing field as the victors who chose to sacrifice themselves. So I think really here, could he have let them in on any information? Yeah. But then I also understand why he didn't want to take that risk. So like, I'd put Haymitch about 20% asshole. Like, kind of a little bit in the wrong, but I see where you're coming from. And if the plan had worked, Katniss couldn't be mad at him. I don't know what you think about Haymitch, but like, Plutarch's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, I think in terms of Haymitch, I would say about 20-25%. Mainly after hearing your points today that I hadn't really thought of, in the respect that, like, if his plan had worked, it would have been fine from Katniss' perspective, but obviously he's still already lost his friends. So at the end of the day, it's like, is he an arsehole for sacrificing his friends and the other victors for the greater good? But then these people agreed to be sacrificed. They knew what they were being sacrificed for. They, I guess, trusted Haymitch in respect. They had some faith in Katniss and they had some faith in the plan. And if they were going to die anyway, from Haymitch's side anyway, he had no involvement in the Quarter Quell or
they're in the arena.
To put them in there. Yeah, they're already in the arena. They might as well die for the greater good. I do think Plutarch is a different question, though.
Yeah, I think Plutarch, it comes down to, do we think he knew, and what do we think he knew, and where did it fall? I think he is, even if you take out the idea of him setting up Seneca Crane, which I mentioned, and him even having any say at all over the Quarter Quell being victors. Like, we already knew that this arena would be the arena for this year. I think the arena must have changed from the original perspective when the victors got introduced as a concept. And whether or not he brought in the victors as like his idea and not like Snow's, or whether Snow just said, how do we get Katniss back in the arena to him, and he said, we bring in all the victors. Even if you take all that out, you've still got a member of Capital High Society once again playing games with the lives of people he isn't directly, like, I guess, related to in any way, shape or form.
I think for me, Plutarch, he has a different scale, on like a different kind of marking on the arsehole scale, depending on what you think and what you agree kind of the plan was. So like if if having the victors come back into the arena wasn't the original Quarter Quell idea, and Plutarch convinced Snow to do this, knowing that he could then get his pawns on one chessboard, sacrifice them anyway, but get closer to his plan, I think that is high arsehole.
I think that's like 90% arsehole.
Yeah, that's like 90% arsehole. He knows he's going to kill these people. He's going to know he's kill these people who are going to help him with the plan, and he's putting them into this horrible situation and he's going to kill them off. I think that's horrible. I think they could have figured out a different plan. Plutarch was doing this with his pawns on a chessboard after the fact, and Snow decided on his own accord that they were going to do the Quarter Quell this way. They were going to use the victors, and he was like, well, okay, well, this isn't up to me, but now I know the victors are going to be in there. I can't do anything to stop this. I now have to work with what I've been given, but it's helpful because it will actually help the plan, and these people will die anyway because that's what they expect in the games. We'll save as many as we can, but that might just not work out. I think he's more arsehole than Haymitch, just because he is still playing with the lives of district people for the rebellion, and he's still a game maker. He's still contributing to the Hunger Games kind of franchise, but he's significantly less so.
Yeah,
if you believe the other.
I think if you go by what the text actually says, as opposed to all like the subtext and theories that we've brought into play, I'd probably put him at about 35% at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Because he did also try and tip Katniss off as a mentor. But something that you just said there in terms of like, okay, right, putting these are the victors that we've got, putting them in to place. You've just sort of made me think of another question, which I don't know the answer to, but I do want to pose anyway. Do you think, because obviously we know that the plan to get them out occurred once they knew it was going to be a Quarter Quell with victors involved, right? That appears 4 months beforehand. And as toxic as this sounds, it's the Hunger Games. It's probably true.
Yeah.
Do you think, obviously we know Katniss was going to be in the games regardless. She was always going to be a piece. And then Haymitch could have basically forced Peter to be, knowing what Peter would do. You know 2 of the players out of the 24, right? Do you think there was like all these different tentative plans of, okay, like who do we want to be drawn because they will benefit the rescue mission best? Do you think that was like a thing to be like, okay, well, ideally we need Finnick and Joanna, or okay, well, what happens if it's all the guys who aren't even remotely linked to rebels? Then what's the plan at that point? Like, do we try and get people to volunteer? Like, because you want, or is it rigged? Is it all rigged automatically to know who's going to go in?
I honestly think it is all rigged, because obviously it was going to be Katniss, but I think it's no coincidence that they pulled Haymitch's name from the bowl, because obviously he's kind of still due a punishment from his games. I think Snow would have been like, yeah, like throw him in, let's have Haymitch, let's have Finnick and Annie, because that would be really torturous, right? Finnick and Annie in the arena. Yeah. Obviously not expecting Mags to then offer herself up as tribute. Yeah, the same as Peter did. And then having the sister and brother, what was it, from District 1? I think is also really sick.
Gloss
really
and Kashmir.
Yeah.
Can we talk about those names a second? Gloss and Kashmir.
Oh, well, we'll get into that in our Victors episode, because that's a whole thing. But yeah, I think it is rigged. It is rigged in some sort of way. I don't know whether Plutarch was involved in picking the exact people, or whether that was primarily Snow. But I do get what you mean. Like, if they needed those people for the plan to work, they're reaped literally a couple of weeks before,
like a week
the game
before
start.
You go into the arena, because you literally go straight from the reaping to the train to get to the capital to 3 or 4 days of training, then your interview, then the next day you're in the arena. Like, you only have a week then. Or do you just go, okay, right, well, here's all the possible people who could be reaped. Here's who we want. Here's who we don't want, who won't be beneficial to the rebellion. Okay, out of the people who we know would play ball, who do we assign what task? How would they get out? Because all the plan kind of hinges on Beetee blowing a hole in the force field.
Yeah, but this is what I think. Do you think it was Snow picks who to put in? Because right, Snow has an issue with Beetee as well, right? Like we saw that in Sunrise and the Reaping. So it's not a surprise he'd go in again and Wireth. Do you think it was like Snow picked the people, and then how far ahead, and then Plutarch got to see the list for planning, the games because he's head game maker, and then he kind of ferried that along to his rebel counterparts, and they kind of got communication going and figured it out.
Yeah, I think if you go back to like how specific the arena is and how torturous parts of it are, like there are some bits that seem to link back to the plan, right? Because the lightning was required for Beatty to generate some sort of electrical charge to blow the force field. The Jabberjays would torture Katniss and Finnick the most. Joanna remarks that she has no one to love. So obviously they weren't there to torture Joanna. They were there to torture like those who do have loved ones on the outside. Like Cecilia, who has 3 kids, that would have been hell for her. But like specifically the lightning thing, you kind of needed that for Beatty's plan to work. So he kind of must have known Beatty was going in to put in the lightning to give the electrical guy an electrical charge.
Yeah, so it's like, well,
and now we're getting to like 45% arsehole, 50% arsehole.
Like, because even when it literally starts and she sees that it's all water, and obviously you got Finnick from District 4, he's really good at swimming. She literally remarks like, "This arena was built for you." So if it was built for Finnick to potentially win, they must have known. Oh, this gets really complicated. I really want to know, listeners.
Go on forever with this. Yeah,
I really want to know, listeners, what your thoughts are. What point do you think Plutarch knew? How do you think Plutarch was involved? What do you think his kind of hands in organising everything was? Do you think it was Snow's decision? Do you think he convinced him? And how much of an arsehole do you think these people are? Because it is very complicated. It's very
complicated. And there's so many different potential scenarios. So obviously Katniss, you're looking at this novel from Katniss's perspective, and Katniss has no idea about the plan. She has no idea what goes on behind. So from a narrative point of view as well, there are so many possibilities, and that really dictates how well we can rate arseholeness, if I can coin that term.
Yeah.
But speaking of all the poisoning the games from within and everything that we think Plutarch may or may not have done, if you had that choice, if you could control the games, turn the games to your favour or the other way around from the inside, like Plutarch or like any member of the team who hosts the games, would you, and what would you do?
Oh, this is like asking, last time it was like, if you were in a spy in Snow's mansion for the victor's party, what would you do?
What would you do?
I feel like the moral part of me would be like, yes, I'd want to mess with it, and I would want to kind of break the arena, as they say they keep trying to do, but do it from obviously the game maker's side. Then I am also very aware that I probably would die or have my tongue cut out.
Yeah, you kind of, I think you need to be actively aware that you're going to cop it if you do anything like this, unless you are very, very sneaky. And like we assume with Plutarch, you pin it on somebody else. So I think as long as you're not the main head game maker and you are just someone on the advising board, I think you could get away with a lot and have it fall back on somebody else. Especially because I guess it's probably going to be the kind of toxic boardroom where everyone wants to impress the president, and so any idea that seems decently good would be like claimed as, oh, that was me. Okay, well, your head's on the chopping block for it, even if you didn't come up with the idea. I don't know. This seems my first initial thought, and it seems really, really horrible, but it would be to trigger all the game maker events at once.
So that'd be chaos.
It would be absolute chaos, I guess. But you could spin it to the Capitol as, well, we wanted to up the ante. There wasn't a lot going on. Everyone's feeling pretty safe right now. They're scattered across the arena. Let's try and really like do something like big. But I ultimately think it would end in like everyone's deaths at the same time, because like ultimately like it goes back to Katniss like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen to the games? There is no victor.
Yeah.
So as toxic and as horrible as it sounds, I think she's onto something. And I think unless you wanted to actively start a rebellion and do Plutarch's plan and break people out, you'd have to like make sure there is no victor and sacrifice in that way.
That's heavy. That's heavy. Yeah.
Whether I would do it or not is a different matter, but I think it's probably one of the only plans that is viable.
I'm interested to know what everybody thinks. Like, what would you do? Would you do what Rachel suggested? Would you be like me and kind of like probably a little bit be a bit too scared? Like, I'm intrigued to know. But thank you so much for sticking around for all of episode 8, for making it to episode 8, to listening to our Haymitch and Plutarch episode. We're going to be excited to speak to you next week. What are we going to speak about, Rachel?
Next week, I believe, is our Victors episode. I think we're really going to pull apart how they all got to where they are and how we went from all holding hands and standing in solidarity and all trying to really blame the Capitol for these games to the second that cannon sounds, all hell breaking loose.
Well, that's going to be an interesting episode, but
100%.
Yeah, I hope to see you there. I hope you are enjoying the series. Please let us know your thoughts and opinions, and we can't wait to see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to our podcast, and don't forget to let us know your thoughts on all of our potential assholes.
No matter what platform you're listening to us on, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, upvote and all that stuff.
If you like what we do and want to find out more, all of our platforms are listed in the description or show notes. We're a 2-person team, so any support or feedback is always greatly received.
Tune in next time to Once Upon a Red Flag. I think the saying is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but we kind of know this to be a massive generalization. And if you look forward to the 3rd book, it is wildly inaccurate. Turns out the enemy of your enemy can also be your enemy as well.